People are struggling and developing harmoniously. No system, genius adventure flow. The young man rose from the depths of the mountain, carrying the promise to return his mother's tablet to the ancestral temple. Refining elixirs all the way, collecting abnormal fire, and defeating strong enemies. The emperor's pupils opened, piercing through heaven and earth, tearing apart the sky. When the haze on the horizon descended again, the eyes closed and the emperor's light shone. Lu Xing suppressed everything with an invincible posture. Chapter 1. Sleep Immortal Skill, for Collection. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lu Xing, let's terminate our engagement. Lu Xing, with a slender figure, dressed in black linen clothes, a handsome face, and long flowing hair. Looking at the distant stage, the people participating in the Doji Qi test were lost in thought when suddenly a voice pulled them back to reality. Lu Xing turned his head and saw a mature and beautiful girl wearing a white long dress, looking at him coldly. Just now, it was her who proposed to terminate the engagement with Lu Xing. Lu Yu, you're a bit anxious. I thought you would at least show off and wait for a while. Lu Xing said without hesitation. But since you have already decided, I won't force it either. From today on, the two of us. Termination of engagement. Lu Xing said lightly. Sorry, me. Lu Yu was a bit surprised. Without any entanglement, Lu Xing agreed and couldn't bear it. She wanted to explain a few words. However, before she could speak, Lu Xing chuckled lightly and said, You don't have to say sorry, everyone has the right to pursue happiness. Just, don't regret it in the future. Today's decision. Lu Xing said seriously to Lu Yu. Regret. Lu Yu chuckled lightly and said, What do I regret about terminating my engagement with you? Every time I ask you to practice together, you don't even do it. You know to sleep a lot every day. Now my cultivation level is at most 3 levels of Do Qi. And I have already reached 6 levels of Do Qi and have been admitted to the sect by Tianyang sect. You'll be able to walk out of this endless mountain soon, but even if you spend your whole life, you can't walk out. We will be people from 2 different worlds in the future, and there will be no intersection, let alone any regrets. After Lu Yu finished speaking, she angrily turned around and left. She felt that there was no need to waste her lips and tongue with Lu Xing anymore. After all, they were already people from 2 different worlds. What a pity. I don't even want to wait until I finish the test. I've always performed well before, so it's not reliable. Lu Xing looked at Lu Yu's slender back, twisting his waist and hips as he walked, and whispered to himself. Lu Xing and Lu Yu can be said to be childhood sweethearts who grew up together. The 2 of them got married at the age of 8. Life used to be so peaceful. The problem occurred 3 days ago. 3 days ago, Tianyang sect, one of the 5 major sects of the Gama Empire, went to Liujia town to recruit disciples. Requirement. Age should not exceed 15 years old, with a fighting spirit of 6 levels or above. This standard is already very high for places like Liujia town, which have no foundation and few fighters. Everyone thought that this time recruiting disciples would also be like a few years ago, with everyone going through motions and then going back to their respective homes. Unexpectedly, on the first day, Lu Yu was unexpectedly unpopular. At the age of 14, he has 6 levels of fighting energy. On the spot, he was taken into the sect by the Tianyang sect members. Then came the scene just now, the classic act of going ashore and first slaying the person in love. Humph. It's just that we often practice together, absorbing some of the fighting spirit that I dissipated, and even becoming proud. Who said that if you sleep, you can't practice? I haven't heard of the sleeping immortal skill before. Lu Xing pursed his lips and turned his head to look back at the distant high platform. That is a rectangular wooden platform with a block placed in the middle, a 3-meter-high black stone. Standing next to them were several young men wearing blue chests and white robes with the character Young printed on their backs. At this moment, Dozens of eligible teenagers are queuing up for testing. Do you want to enter the Cangqiong sect? Lu Xing felt a bit troubled in his heart. Cangqiong sect, he can enter as soon as he wants, but he doesn't want to enter so early. Because of his background, it's a bit special. He is not a purebred person from Liujia town. He was originally one of the top 10 families in the Gama Empire, the head of the Feng family, and the illegitimate son of Feng Li. Feng family, why did they run to Liujia town? The story is very cliché and common, because of the palace intrigue. Lu Xing's mother was originally a maid of the Feng family. Because of Feng Li's drunken promiscuity, Lu Xing was born. But his mother, on the other hand, did not rely on her son's wealth, and her position in the Feng family remained unchanged. Even because of this, he was targeted by several wives of Feng Li everywhere. He will always remember the various humiliations he encountered with his mother at the Feng family. I remember in the cold winter, the mother and son were punished by their mother and knelt in the snow all night. I remember the mother and son being detained for their monthly routine, feeling embarrassed without food or clothing. Remember his brothers who mocked him and insulted him as a wild seed. When Lu Xing was 8 years old, his mother couldn't bear to be humiliated and fled the Feng family with him. He arrived at Liujia town and changed his surname to Lu. Half a year ago, when my mother passed away, she still held a grudge against the past and refused to close her eyes. At that time, Lu Xing swore that one day he would go back and use his strength to wash away the humiliation of those years. Returning to the Feng family, I personally delivered my mother's tablet to the ancestral hall of the Feng family to console the spirits in heaven. And the reason why he is somewhat indecisive about entering the Cangqiong sect. The main reason is still fear. After entering, the Feng family will discover it. After all, the Wind family is one of the top 10 families in the Gamma Empire, with a huge influence. And now he is too weak to struggle in front of such a huge object. Once discovered, it's over. He wants to develop a little more lewd and wait a while before going out. At that moment, Lu Xing suddenly saw him standing next to the high platform. Lu Yu was chatting with a handsome and elegant Cangqiong sect disciple who was 15 or 16 years old. They were chatting passionately, occasionally covering their mouths and chuckling lightly, with a shy expression on their face. Hey hey! Xiao Sheng, what's going on? Isn't Lu Yu your fiancé AE? Why are you chatting so happily with that person in front of so many people? A chubby little man wearing linen clothes and disheveled hair ran to Lu Xing's side, tugged at his clothes, and said. His name is Lu Qing, he is Lu Xing's neighbor and also his close friend. The two of them went down the river to catch fish, up the tree to pick up birds, and together they urinated to see who was further away from the revolutionary friendship. When Lu Xing's mother and son first arrived in Liujia town, Lu Qing's parents were very helpful. After his mother's death, he remained with Lu Qing's family, taking care of him with assistance. Qingga, Lu Yu has already terminated my engagement with me. From now on, she will no longer be my fiancé AE. Don't talk nonsense either. Lu Xing looked at Lu Yu, whose face was flushed and occasionally showed pure white shell teeth. He covered his mouth and chuckled lightly, feeling uneasy in his heart. After all, the two have been together for so many years under the guise of childhood sweethearts and unmarried couples. If you say you don't have any emotions, it's fake. What? Lu Qing was shocked at the words and sighed again. Yes, Lu Yudo's qi has 6 sections. Being accepted by Cangqiong sect as a beginner, I am about to leave the mountains. This is understandable. But it's a bit excessive, isn't it? Humph, Lu Yu, are you so eager? You don't even cover up. Lu Xing let out a cold snort in his heart, his anger burning. There is a better future, and the termination of the engagement can be understood by Lu Xing. But the seamless connection, being so intimate with other men in front of him in public, is a bit excessive. Hey! Don't you think that's Lu Yu? Why are you chatting so happily with someone from the Cangqiong sect in public? That's right, isn't she Lu Sheng's fiancée AE? Maybe I joined the Tianyang sect and my heart became high. Let's dump Lu Sheng. It's probably like this. But that Lu Sheng really doesn't match Lu Yu. The people in the town below the stage gradually noticed Lu Yu's side and began pointing and talking about their affairs to Lu Sheng. So what can we do? Forget it, let's go back, little one. Today, I'll have my mom make roasted chicken for us to eat. Lu Qing saw that Lu Sheng's face was a bit off, and the people in the town were discussing more and more under the high platform. He was pulling him away from here. No, this matter can't just be settled like this. If we leave now, won't we be looked down upon by others? Lu Sheng took away Lu Qing's hand and instead placed an arm on his shoulder, saying expressionlessly. No, how are you doing if you don't go through like this? Don't do anything foolish, little one. If we cause trouble now, we'll be at a loss. Lu Qing held on to Lu Sheng, afraid that he would not be able to resist running wild. What stupid thing to do. I mean, we should also join the Tianyang sect. Lu Sheng looked at Lu Qing with a speechless expression on his face, unable to resist rolling his eyes. I don't know what's going on in his mind. Ah. Are you crazy, entering the Tianyang sect? Do you know what the admission criteria are? Lu Qing looked at Lu Sheng with a silly expression on her face. I know. At 15 years old, I have 6 levels of Doji Qi. What's wrong? Lu Sheng said with a puzzled expression on his face. You know, then go up. Lu Qing said in a low voice, let's go up. Isn't that self-deprecating? I don't mean you and I don't know, where have you been practicing seriously? Lu Qing said and gave Lu Sheng a big white eye. Before, Lu Sheng slept every day, like a sleeping god. Where did he practice? Entering the Tianyang sect is not just a daydream. Do you want to join the Tianyang sect? Upon hearing this, Lu Sheng didn't explain much and only asked Lu Qing about it. Yes, of course I did. Who wouldn't want to step out of this mountain, but... As Lu Qing spoke, her voice gradually decreased. It's nothing, but just follow me if you want, and I'll guarantee you entry into the Tianyang sect. Not only will we enter the Tianyang sect, but we will also boldly enter. As he spoke, Lu Sheng released his arm that was embracing Lu Qing and slapped her with a palm. An extremely pure white fighting spirit flowed out of his hands and then into his body. At the same time, he grabbed it and walked towards the high platform. Xiao Sheng, I think we shouldn't embarrass ourselves anymore. We'll create a whole paragraph or two later. What a shame. Lu Qing wanted to resist, but didn't want to look at him. Lu Sheng, who was shorter and much thinner than him, had astonishing strength. He is in his hands, just like a little chick, unable to struggle. Don't worry, I said it's okay. Where do you think Lu Yu's Doji Qi Lu Duan comes from? Lu Sheng whispered to himself as he spoke, that's all my credit. Your child has absorbed my scattered and pure fighting spirit, much more than her. Are you afraid you won't be able to enter the Tianyang sect? Thinking this way, Lu Sheng remembered the secret he shared with his mother. After escaping from the Feng family, he once stumbled into a cave and obtained a martial arts book called Sleeping Immortal Skill. This cultivation method is amazing. As is well known, the realm of Do Qi relies entirely on the innate talent of practitioners. The stage of absorbing fighting energy, washing bones and marrow, and condensing the cyclone of fighting. At this stage, one can only instinctively cultivate, but cannot use pills, techniques, etc. And the sleeping immortal technique is a rare technique that can be practiced during the Do Qi stage. It can allow people to absorb fighting energy while sleeping, and the speed is extremely fast. After all, the realm of Do Qi absorbs Do Qi, which requires a calm mind. There is no other time in this world than when a person is asleep or sleepwalking in a state of emptiness, when their heart is even more calm. It is said that this cultivation method can also cultivate souls. What is the soul? I don't know. This involves his knowledge blind spot. By relying on this technique, Lu Sheng successfully condensed the Doji cyclone at the age of 10 and entered the Doja realm. In recent years, due to a possibility, I have not been able to advance and suppress the level. When there is too much fighting spirit, it dissipates and spreads into someone else's body. If you like it, please join the bookshelf to avoid forgetting the world. 2 chapters are updated daily, and 20 readers are urged to add 1 chapter. Chapter 2. Acceptance of Precepts. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lu Qing and Lu Yu often practiced with him, and their scattered fighting spirit was absorbed by them. Therefore, Lu Yu was able to reach the 6th stage of Do Qi. Hey, look at Lu Sheng and Lu Qing, they're rushing towards the high platform. There won't be anything wrong, will there? Look at Lu Sheng's expression, something's wrong. You're talking nonsense. Your fiancé AE is in front of everyone and behaves like that. Can your expression be correct? Seeing Lu Sheng and Lu Qing walking towards the high platform, everyone instantly became calm. Everyone was discussing, thinking that there would be a good play to be staged. If you are an adult, facing this situation, after weighing the pros and cons, you may fear the power of the Tianyang sect, and there is a high chance that you will endure it. What else should we do, risk our lives? But Yi Bai is different, he is a 13-year-old child. He is a child, what can he know? The disciples of the Tianyang sect who understand what kind of dimensionality reduction blow it is to ordinary people in Liujia town. When my mind heats up, I really dare to rush forward. When Lu Yu saw Lu Xing walking, she frowned and thought to herself, this toad is really annoying. Haven't you recognized the gap between us yet? And next to her, the disciple of the Tianyang sect proudly straightened his chest and leaned closer to her. Looking down at Lu Sheng with a provocative expression on his face. In his eyes, what waves can an ordinary person from a remote mountain village make? What's going on soon, just show off and suppress it with one hand. By the way, take down this little beauty beside you. Lu Sheng ignored everyone's discussion, Lu Yu's disgusted gaze, and the provocative gaze of the Tianyang sect disciple. Pull Lu Qing straight up the high platform. Why pull up Lu Qing? Because he wants to develop, he doesn't want to leave this good brother behind. The path of cultivation is too lonely, and he always needs someone to accompany him. Don't talk nonsense, Lu Sheng and my family's Yuer have already had no engagement. Yesterday, Lu Xing came to visit my house and said that Lu Yu has exceptional talent and is a proud daughter of heaven. He is not worthy of you and voluntarily terminated his engagement. I just hope that in the future, you can make great achievements and help him, don't you think so, Shaoxing? At this moment, a middle-aged man dressed in black, with no flesh on his cheeks and cunning and sinister eyes stood up from the crowd and shouted at everyone. After speaking, he also looked at Lu Sheng and asked him about it. Lu Sheng turned his head and looked at the man, filled with disappointment. He is Lu Yu's father, Lu Mu. Speaking of which, there is still some connection between Liu Mu and the Lu Xing family. At that time, Lu Xing's mother and son had just arrived in Liujia town. His mother once saved Lu Mu's life under the claws of a second-level demon beast. Although Lu Xing's mother is just a servant in the Feng family, her dosher's strength is undoubtedly the first in the Lu family town. Liu Mu expressed gratitude for saving his life and also wanted to hold on to his thigh. I took the initiative to come to my door and arranged for a baby kiss. But now, Liu Mu surprisingly doesn't care about saving his life, and speaks so recklessly in public. He always thought that Lu Yu's withdrawal was her own decision, but Lu Mu didn't know. Lu Xing, do you think so or not? Seeing Lu Xing looking at him with disappointment in his eyes, Lu Mu felt a bit guilty and afraid that he would speak up about the termination of his engagement, which would be detrimental to his family's reputation. He quickly scolded him loudly. I hope this can scare Lu Xing. Everyone looked at Lu Sheng, wanting to see how he would answer. Hee. Lu Sheng chuckled lightly and nodded, saying, "That's right, it's not worth it." Oh. I knew it would be like this. That's it, those who know current affairs are heroes. Everyone nodded at the words, as if they had already guessed the correct answer in their hearts. Liumu nodded in satisfaction and looked at Lu Sheng, who looked like a good kid with a very up-to-earth attitude. The disdain in Lu Yu's eyes became even more severe, as if she was looking at a dog. But I think everyone misunderstood. It's not that I'm not worthy of Lu Yu, but that Lu Yugen is not worthy of me. Please remember this, it was Lu Yu who couldn't match me, that's why I withdrew. At this moment, Lu Sheng followed the words of the willow tree and walked down the pole. However, everyone did not respond, as if they were looking at a fool, looking at it. As expected by Lu Sheng, he had no intention at all and everyone immediately responded to him. He just needs to present the facts to them. After speaking, Lu Sheng will go up to the high platform. My name is Fong He. This is the place where Tianyang sect accepts disciples. We don't accept waste below the 6th level of Doji Qi. The Tianyang sect disciple stepped forward and blocked Lu Sheng. He wanted to show his face in front of Lu Yu and step on Lu Sheng to demonstrate his strength. Women are all powerful, showcasing their strength is the quickest way to capture young girls. Even if we strike while the iron is hot, perhaps we can kiss Fangza tonight. Xiao Sheng. Lu Qin pulled at Lu Sheng. He is still a bit afraid of the righteous disciples of the Heavenly Yang sect. You should know that the disciples of Tianyang sect who walk outside are at least fighters. Lu Sheng patted Lu Qin, indicating that he was at ease, and then smiled, Fong He. How do you know, I'm under 6 Dan? Why, do you feel that your strength is above the 6th level and meets the standards of Tianyang sect's apprenticeship? Fong He grinned. He is a legitimate fighter and can feel that there is not much strong fighting spirit fluctuation on Lu Sheng. According to his estimation, his strength is the strongest, only about 3 stages of Duki. This is Fong He's feeling wrong. The realm of a fighter cannot be sensed unless it is a very powerful fighter. This is not a game, can I give you a level bar? Moreover, Fong He is a fighter, and Lu Sheng across from him is also a fighter. The two of them share the same realm, what can they sense? I want to take a test now, but I can't do it either. Lu Sheng frowned tightly and said. As far as he knows, this test is voluntary and anyone can take it if they want, with no authority for others to interfere. We've been busy all day, you're not level enough, don't waste our energy. Fong He frowned slightly and dared not explicitly refuse Lu Sheng because it was against the rules. If the sect found out, they would have to go to the law enforcement hall. I can understand your feelings, Lu Sheng, but I hope you don't cause trouble. We both practice together every day, and you haven't practiced much at all. Sleeping every day, it's impossible to have the 6 levels of fighting energy. At this moment, Lu Yu also stepped forward and said. Everyone thought that Lu Sheng was causing trouble now, and she was no exception. What if I have it? Lu Sheng stared at Lu Yu and said word by word. How about this, kid? At that moment, Fong He took out a dark and antique ring and spoke again, let's make a bet today, how about it? Bet. Bet what? Lu Sheng asked. I'll use this ring as a bet. If you really have a fighting aura of 6 levels, then this ring is yours. If you don't have it, then you won't be allowed to pester Miss Lu Yu from now on. If you don't have any further connections, how about that? Fong He looked as if he had a clear chance of winning. Upon hearing this, Lu Sheng's eyes lit up as he looked at the black antique ring. Not only him, but others were also shocked by Fong He's move. Neji. It comes with built-in space for storing items, making it a standard accessory for strong players, and this item is extremely rare. Anyway, Liujia Town, with over 4,000 people, doesn't have a single ring, and his mother never owned it. Even if it's above 6 paragraphs. Lu Xing said just in case. Of course. Fang He sneered in his heart, even if you say that a dosher can be anything, I don't believe you're 13 years old. In this damn place, no one teaches you, you can reach the 6th dan. Lu Yu. That's the proud daughter of heaven, otherwise he would be so devoted. Moreover, Lu Yu is 14, Lu Sheng is 13, with a gap of 1 year between them. Okay. Upon hearing this, Lu Sheng was overjoyed and looked at Na Jie, drooling. Young Master Fang He took out such a precious thing, and you, Lu Sheng, just didn't bother Lu Yu. How could you do that? It's so unfair. At this moment, Liu Mu stood up again, his eyes shining brightly. What do you want to do? Lu Xing understood, asking him to increase his chips. He doesn't care about this. Leaving Liujia town, this town doesn't need you, you scammer. Liu Mu said indignantly. Okay. Lu Xing didn't want to agree, just let out a slight sigh in his heart. Mother, look at who you saved back then. Fang He let go, and Lu Xing pulled Lu Qing up and lined up behind the crowd. Lu Ergo, Doji Qi San Duan. Lu Dainiu, the second stage of Doji Qi. Lu Yang, the fighting spirit lasts for a while. As the team slowly moved forward, Lu Xing also approached the stone tablet. Xiao Sheng, Xiao Sheng. I'm afraid. Lu Qing followed behind and secretly pulled Lu Sheng, whispering. What are you afraid of? I made the bet, not you. Lu Xing felt a bit speechless towards Lu Qing. How dare you say that you don't know how much you weigh and how much you dare to make this bet? You said you lost, but what should you do? Lu Qing said with a mournful face. Don't worry, I won't lose, at least this time I won't lose. Lu Xing comforted. On the other side. Senior brother Fang, can you make a bet on something so valuable? Lu Yu's eyebrows furrowed slightly, and her heart was a bit swollen. Do you mean that Lu Sheng may really be the 6th dan of Doji Qi? Fang He shook his head and smiled. At the age of 13, there are 6 levels of fighting spirit, not to mention the secluded Liujia town in the deep mountains. Even in families where there are powerful experts in martial arts, this kind of existence is an absolute genius. Is this intentional? Lu Xing turned around and glanced, seeing Fang He and Lu Yu whispering to each other again, his nose almost tilted in anger. Judging from the level of familiarity between these two people, I'm sure they didn't just get to know each other today. In other words, he not only got dumped, but also got stuck in 2 different boats. This is even more frustrating than a seamless connection. Hush. Suddenly, Lu Xing felt a sharp pain in his eyes and couldn't help but reach out and rub it before slowly improving. What's wrong with you? You can't just back out at this time, I feel like it's already too late. Lu Qing thought Lu Sheng was trying to find an excuse and didn't take the test. What are you talking about? I just suddenly had a pain in my eyes, but I feel like it's a good thing. Lu Xing said, recalling the possibility in the sleeping immortal technique. Chapter 3. Alchemist's Talent. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Soon, Lu Sheng and Lu Qing arrived at the stone tablet. This is a dark stone tablet, carved with mysterious textures, which can test the energy of human combat and the strength of the fighter's realm. Hey! You shouldn't have offended Fang He. The child is too impulsive. His identity, even I am afraid. Lu Xing walked up to Su He, who was in charge of testing at the stone tablet, and shook his head at him. Upon hearing this, Lu Xing looked at this person. Suha has a slightly chubby figure and a plain appearance, but it seems to have a natural affinity that makes people feel good about him. He is different from the other disciples of the Tianyang sect. The other disciples of Tianyang sect are only 15 or 16 years old, and they are immature in their work, so they should have come out to experience. And he seems to be already 17 or 18, with stronger strength, probably the leader of the Tianyang sect. How do you know before the test? Lu Xing chuckled. This person has no ill intentions, perhaps just looking at him as a child, being bullied is somewhat pitiful, so he feels pity in his heart. Therefore, Lu Xing also responded with a friendly smile. Huh, put your hand on it. Su He didn't say much and pointed to it. A Tai Chi pattern smiled. The test is coming, how could I possibly reach the 6th grade? That willow tree wants him to leave Liujia town. He's just a child, leaving town. How can he live outside without being eaten by monsters? Keep your voice down, just be targeted by the Liumu family. Seeing that Lu Sheng was about to start the test, everyone in Liujia town became nervous. After all, they watched him grow up and couldn't help but feel pity. Liumu listened to everyone's words and a slight smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Because he heard it, someone was already afraid of him. With Lu Yu, this town is likely to be his in the future. Lu Yu breathed a sigh of relief in her heart, finally able to get rid of this mangy toad. This will be better for her future development in the Tianyang sect. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief and happily covered her mouth with a light smile. Tonight, we must strike while the iron is hot and take down this little genius beauty. Fong He felt extremely passionate when he saw Lu Yu's beautiful smile. As for the gambling agreement with Lu Sheng, he never worried at all. These days, he learned about his image from Lu Yu's mouth. He is just a wild child who spends his days catching fish and birds, never practicing. This kind of person can fight for 6 levels of qi. Lu Sheng, don't be too ugly. Lu Qing was so scared that she closed her eyes. No matter what others thought, Lu Sheng felt no burden in his heart and reached out to place his hand on the Tai Chi pattern. It's a bit cool to start with, so there's nothing else to feel. This Tai Chi pattern is engraved with words such as gold, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, thunder, light, and darkness on the left. You can detect a person's attributes, and that attribute will light up. On the right is a crystal, which will automatically display your level. If we give it our all, the 13-year-old fighter is too amazing. Even the Feng family has not cultivated so many resources, such a strong person. If you become famous and get noticed by the Feng family, it's not good. It's better to be more restrained. Lu Xing thought for a moment and suppressed his fighting spirit. Su He beside him looked at Lu Sheng in surprise and exclaimed in disbelief. This startled Lu Sheng, thinking he saw something. But fortunately, it's just Without saying anything or taking any action. The test stone tablet began to undergo changes, and in the end, on one side of the attribute, Lu Xing lit up too, while on the other side, a line of characters appeared. Hey, do I still have this talent? Lu Xing looked at his realm and nodded in satisfaction, but when he saw his attributes, he was a bit surprised. I'll wipe it. Su He looked at Lu Xing's result and was also startled, unable to help but burst out in a foul language. Senior brother Suha, what's wrong? Fong He, who was originally proud and thinking about how to kiss Fengzi tonight, looked at Su He and asked. The other Tianyang sect disciples who stand guard and maintain order also look towards this side. Lu Qing looked at the stone tablet with a bewildered expression on his face, but don't misunderstand. He couldn't read at all and didn't see anything. Suha turned around and looked at Fong He with some pity, sighed, and then stepped forward to announce, congratulations to Liujia town for producing another proud son from heaven. What? What's going on? My test results, what's going on? Another proud son of heaven has emerged. Everyone was surprised when they heard this, and the meaning behind this short sentence was simply too great. They all approached to see clearly what had been tested on the stone tablet, and for a moment the scene was a bit chaotic. Liu Mu and Liu Yu were both a bit confused, their hearts beating with drums. Does he really have a fighting aura of 6 levels? Haha. Lu Xing took 2 steps forward and looked at everyone with some pride. He is really happy, after all, this test was really unexpected. Lu Xing, Dookie test. As soon as Sioux River exits, everyone looks at him, waiting for him to reveal the final answer. 7 stages of Doji Chi. With the sound of the Sioux River, even he was a bit excited. At the age of 13, with a 7th level of fighting spirit, this achievement belongs to the upper class in those big families. In this small mountain ditch, it basically belongs to the golden phoenix flying out of the chicken coop. This time I returned to the sect, and my performance evaluation exceeded the standard. What, how could it be? The ancestors and ancestors of Liujia town have appeared. Our Liujia town hasn't produced a single person who meets the requirements in many years, and this time there are actually 2 people. Everyone in Liujia town cheered and jumped up to celebrate the golden phoenix flying out of the town. There are only 2 people, such as the funeral examination. One is Willow Wood, and the other is Willow Jade. How could it be? How could this wild seed be at the 7th level of Doji Chi, even taller than my daughter? Liumu exclaimed in a loss of composure. Liumu, are you an old man seeking death? Are you questioning the Tianyang sect? Lu Xing pointed to the testing stone behind him and Su He chuckled lightly. Liumu didn't speak anymore. No matter how bold he was, he dared not question Tianyang's sect in public. Senior brother Suha, did you make a mistake in the test? Fong he asked in great panic. Suha didn't speak, just pointed to the testing stone tablet, and the marks on it haven't dissipated yet. Upon seeing it, Fong he stood there in an instant, as if he had been hit hard with overwhelming evidence, unable to tolerate any sophistry or denial. Lu Yu looked at Lu Sheng with a pair of beautiful eyes, her face full of regret, secretly cursing herself for being so impatient. Why can't she wait for his fighting spirit test? You should know that Lu Sheng is 13 years old, with a 7-stage fighting aura. Her talent is much stronger than her 14-year-old fighting aura of 6 stages. Fong He, bring it. Lu Xing glanced at Lu Yu and saw that her beautiful and pretty face was full of entanglement, feeling a sense of satisfaction in his heart. Then he reached out his hand to Fong He. Lu Xing, don't go too far. Fong He gritted his teeth in anger. That's a receiving ring, with a precious interior space. Even he was only given one by his family on the day of his 16-year-old coming-of-age ceremony. In front of so many people, will you regret it? Lu Xing chuckled lightly. He deliberately spoke loudly so that everyone could hear him. Kid, don't be too reckless. I'm from the Tianyang family, and I have the Doling ancestor sitting at home. Even if you have some talent, in front of me, you are just like ants. Fong He threatened directly. When Fong He said this, everyone was surprised. They can think of this Fong He, who can easily take out the ring, and his identity must be extraordinary. But to my surprise, their family actually had a powerful spirit fighting figure sitting in their seat. Do Ling, intimidating one side can be called the existence of feudal lords. For Liujia town, which is no stronger than a fighter, it is simply an unattainable high mountain. Even Su He's face couldn't help but change slightly when Fong He moved out of his family, giving him a glance. Everyone looked at Lu Sheng, hoping that he could step back and not entangle anymore. Humph. Are you afraid? Fong He was very satisfied when he saw everyone's reaction. He was confident that his family could completely suppress this group of rural bumpkins in the deep mountains. Lu Sheng is no exception. After all, are you planning to fulfill the agreement and give me a warning? However, Lu Xing did not, as everyone thought, admitting his guilt. You are a Doling family, where did you get to? Lu Xing escaped from the Feng family, although he was quite embarrassed. But at least I've seen some of the world since I was a child. Can be so intimidated. Everyone sighed and sighed, lamenting that Lu Xing was young and immature, and feared that his future journey would be extremely difficult. Okay. Wait, kid. Fong He clearly didn't expect that even though he moved out of the family, Lu Xing insisted on demanding the ring. In front of everyone, he could only suppress his anger and return the ring to Lu Xing's hand. But from his fiery gaze, it could be seen that he had a relationship with Lu Xing. Taking the ring as a token of coolness, Lu Xing flipped it over and smiled at Fang He. "Thank you for giving the ring as a gift." "You're welcome." Fang He gritted his teeth. Regarding this, Lu Xing did not take it seriously. He swore to send his mother's tablet back to the Wind family shrine, which belonged to the Gamma Empire and was one of the top 10 strongmen, Feng. He is not even afraid of the Feng family, and he is also afraid of the Fang family where you, a spiritual powerhouse, will dominate. Ahem. At this moment, Su He coughed lightly and stepped forward. "I haven't finished speaking yet." Everyone's gaze once again focused on Su He, and they heard him loudly say, "Preliminary test, Lu Xing has a fighting spirit attribute, which is to carry wood in the fire and has the talent of an alchemist." After Su He finished speaking, he looked at Lu Xing with great satisfaction. "Alchemist, what is that?" "I don't know, but it feels like it's really impressive." The people of Yojia town below have no knowledge and do not understand what an alchemist is. But everyone in Tianyang's sect had slightly brighter eyes, and they looked at Lu Xing in great surprise, then turned to Fang He, with a hint of relief and joy. "Suha, why didn't you say it earlier?" Fang He's face was extremely gloomy as he looked at Suha, his eyes full of complaints. Alchemist, a person who can refine heavenly and earthly treasures into various miraculous medicinal pills. That is the Gamma Empire, the most noble profession, with a status far exceeding that of its peers. If I knew that Lu Xing had the potential to become an alchemist, he would never be like before. Didn't you just look at the test results? You didn't just look at the attribute column, did you? Su He said innocently. You. Humph. Fang He gave Lu Xing a deep glance and turned around to leave. In front of everyone, he can't do anything and won't leave. Has it been embarrassing here all along? This guy, I'm afraid he won't give up easily. Lu Xing looked at Fang He, his distant figure, and said to himself in his heart. However, he was not afraid either. He had reserved enough backing, and he had a premonition that the possibility of sleeping immortal skill had been bumped into by him. If that's the case, even if Fang He really wants to take action against him, as long as he's careful, there's room for maneuver. Congratulations, becoming a new disciple of Tianyang's sect. Su He patted Lu Xing's shoulder and said. Thank you. Lu Xing grinned and greeted Lu Qing, urging him to take the test quickly before stepping off the high platform. He is a bit eager to study this precept. Chapter 4. The possibility of sleeping immortal skill. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lu Xing. Lu Xing was stopped by Liu Yu as soon as he walked off the high platform. Lu Xing turned his head and looked at Liu Yu, who was tall and graceful in front of him. Although he was small, he had developed a considerable scale and was green, mature, and integrated into one. He couldn't help but go up and down and admire her fiercely. Then he smiled and said, "What's up with Sister Liu Yu?" Liu Yu was taken aback when she heard Lu Xing call her sister. She was not used to this unfamiliar title and reacted by saying, "Our engagement. Isn't it already lifted? You said you wouldn't regret it." Lu Xing stared at Liu Yu and said expressionlessly. "Can't I go back on my word now?" Liu Yu's gentle lips flattened, looking quite unreasonable. In the past, when Liu Yui was like this, Lu Xing would yield and follow her in everything, but this time he won't be following her anymore. "No, Liu Yu hopes you don't do this, otherwise I will look down on you." Lu Xing shook his head and said. "Lu Xing, do you still like me, right?" Liu Yu continued with a pair of beautiful eyes, staring at Lu Xing. "This is no longer meaningful." Lu Xing finished speaking, too lazy to pay any attention to Liu Yu. He turned his head and walked out, only feeling a bit regretful in his heart. Liu Yu is right. Lu Xing does still like her, after all, they were childhood sweethearts and have been together for so many years, but he understands a truth more. Once disloyal, never used for a lifetime. Today, Lu Yu can join the Tianyang sect, but he did not terminate his engagement. If something similar happens again in the future, Lu Xing believes she will do it again. This kind of relationship is not what he wants. Lu Yu looked at the back of Lu Xing's departure, thinking of their past good times, and a hint of regret surged in her heart. If they are still together, they will become Liujia Town, a beautiful story that can also support each other in the Tianyang sect in the future. But now, all of this is gone. The originally clear sky, I don't know when, black clouds appeared, as if brewing a storm. At this point, Lu Qing also began to test. And Lu Xing returned to the place where he had stood before, eager to play with the antique black-shaped Na ring. When he was a child, his brothers and sisters in the Feng family almost had one of them, but he didn't have it. He was envious of their ability to easily transform things and then lose them, but he kept thinking about it and wanted one. Today is finally the day when I have fulfilled my wish. Enter. Lu Xing narrowed his eyes and focused his attention. In an instant, he saw the scene inside the ring. This space is a bit small. Lu Xing noticed that the space inside the ring was only about 1 zhang. There is a world of difference between him and the young masters and ladies of the Feng family when he was a child, who had more than 10 zhang worth of rings. But this has already made him very satisfied, at least he has this thing. I wiped it. Lu Xing, I really succeeded, I succeeded. At that moment, Lu Qing looked excited and ran over bouncing. He was just taking a test on stage, thinking that he would also measure 2 or 3 sections like everyone else. Unexpectedly, he detected the 6th level of Doji Qi and met the acceptance criteria of the Tianyang sect, successfully joining the sect. I'll say it's okay. Lu Xing put the ring on his hand and patted Lu Qing's shoulder. You're still a cow. Lu Qing gave a thumbs up to Lu Xing. Look, if it weren't for me, would you not have taken this test? Lu Xing chuckled. I definitely won't participate, at least wait for next year. Lu Qing shook her head and said. Then should you thank me? Lu Xing coaxed slowly. Today when I came to my house for dinner, I asked my mom to make roasted chicken and steamed fish for us. We drank rice wine and didn't go home until we got drunk. Lu Qing excitedly said to Lu Xing. That's what you're saying, let's go. Lu Xing exclaimed with great joy upon hearing this. As they spoke, the two of them walked towards Lu Qing's house. At this moment, Su He appeared in front of the two and said, Lu Xing, I want to talk to you. I wonder if you have time. You go back first. Lu Xing patted Lu Qing and said. The latter nodded at the words and left. I won't pay back the ring. Lu Xing looked at Su He and said. Do you think I'm here to fight for Fang He and reclaim the precepts? Su He shook his head and smiled. Isn't it? Lu Xing frowned in confusion. Of course not. Su He shook his head and said with a smile, I'm here to tell you that we will depart tomorrow morning and return to Tianyang sect. Don't be late. The second thing I want to tell you is not to run around tonight, it's best to be with a few fighters in your town. Su He said with a somewhat focused expression. Are you saying that Fang He might take advantage of tonight's opportunity to come and kill me? Lu Xing understood Su He's meaning in an instant, and his eyes flickered. He has already formed a grudge with Fang He and will set sail for Tianyang sect tomorrow, when he enters the sect. With his talent as an alchemist with the 7 stages of fighting Qi, he will definitely receive cultivation from the sect. If he wants to take action against him again, it will be difficult. Therefore, tonight is an opportunity for them to nip the threat in the bud with the minimum cost. Fang He is a 4-star fighter, be careful. Su He didn't answer directly and had to leave. Why did you tell me these things? Are you not afraid of being hated by Fang He? Lu Xing said. Because I see unparalleled potential in you. Su He laughed and turned around to prepare for tomorrow's return to the sect. During the test, he noticed that he was stirring up his fighting spirit. Lu Xing rubbed his chin and whispered in his heart. Obviously, Su He's move is an investment in Lu Xing. On the face of it, he did not let it take the risk of forming a grudge with Fang He and instead showed him the value of goodwill. Shu. How should Fang He deal with it? Lu Xing felt a little headache. Lu Xing believes what Su He just said. Because if he were Fang He, he would definitely attack and kill himself tonight, otherwise entering the sect would be even more troublesome. So he needs to find a way to escape this calamity. After all, he is now just a fighter who has not even practiced martial arts, even though he has practiced the Xuanjia lower-level combat skills left for him by his mother. But against the 4-star fighter, there is no chance at all, not even a chance to escape. The fighters in the town probably won't offend Fang He for me, and I don't want to hand over my own life to others. Lu Xing thought about Su He's suggestion just now, but it was rejected by him. People are all selfish, although he can also be considered a few fighters in the town. He watched them grow up, but he didn't believe that they would offend Fang He for his sake. Oh. Got it. Suddenly, Lu Xing's spirit flashed and he ran up the mountain in high spirits. After finishing his busy work, Lu Xing went to Lu Qing's house to have a meal as agreed. Today, Lu Qing's parents are very happy that their child is actually a cultivation genius. At the age of only 13, he reached the 6th stage of Do Qi cultivation. And he also joined the Tianyang sect. Therefore, today's dishes are particularly rich. Roast chicken, steamed fish, bamboo tube food, the same, and Lu Xing have bulging bellies. During this period, the mayor of Liujia town, along with several fighters, gave a gift to Lu Xing and his companions. I hope they can have better development in the future and come back to change the impoverished Liujia town. When Lu Xing came out of Lu Qing's house, it was already sunset and darkness had descended. Boom boom. Boom boom. Several lightning bolts pierced through the night sky, thundering and deafening. It started pouring rain from the sky, in the back mountain of Liujia town, amidst a bamboo forest. The night breeze carrying raindrops blows, swaying the bamboo forest with a clattering sound, and bamboo leaves dance in the sky. In the bamboo forest, there is a tomb that covers an area of over 10 meters and is 2 meters high. At this moment, Lu Xing stood in front of the tomb, letting the rain hit him. The night wind blew, cold and piercing, with no joy or sadness on his face. At this moment, he thought a lot. Thinking of the humiliation I suffered with my mother at the Feng family when I was a child. Later, his mother took him to escape, and the journey was arduous. And after coming to Liujia town, a few years of comfort. I also thought of having dinner at Lu Qing's house this afternoon. His parents were excited and the whole family looked happy and harmonious. If you were here, you would definitely be like Lu Qing's parents, so happy, make delicious food for me. Lu Xing whispered. Don't worry, I will definitely take you into the ancestral land of the Feng family, place your tablet in the Feng family ancestral hall. It will also make those who once bullied our mother and son pay the price, especially Feng Li. Lu Xing's eyes showed a towering hatred. It was all because of Feng Li that he created his tragic childhood. If it weren't for Feng Li's acquiescence, how could the main mother and her son be so brazenly bullying them? Even their servants dared to brag and shout at him. Lu Xing took a deep breath to calm his mood. He stretched his hands forward in a posture, and then mobilized his internal fighting spirit to flow according to specific channels. He will fight his mother's grave before leaving, and his fighting skills will be taught to him during his lifetime. Liu Xing's body is like that of an ape, with extremely flexible movements on both sides. With both hands waving, he can even make the sound of air bursting. Suddenly, he jumped up and stepped on the bamboo with both feet, reaching 4 or 5 meters in mid-air and slapping it with one palm. The fierce palm wind blew away all the raindrops several meters ahead, directly creating a vacuum zone without rain. With this palm strike, it truly has the power to break the gold and crack the stone. This set of fighting skills is called 6 Harmony Palm. It is a low-level fighting skill of the Xian level, and when practiced to the fullest, one palm can produce 6 streams of strength, stacked layer by layer. The combination of 6 powers has a power comparable to that of intermediate martial arts in the Xuanjie level. Now Lu Sheng has cultivated it to the point where he can strike with one palm and unleash all 6 energies. At such an age, it is extremely frightening to be able to cultivate this palm technique to this extent. Ah! Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain in his eyes, and his fighting spirit was out of control, with a hidden risk of being uncontrollable and becoming possessed by the devil. Scared, he quickly sat cross-legged to regulate his fighting spirit. Cough cough. Did I really realize the possibility of sleeping immortal skill? Lu Sheng covered his mouth with his hand, feeling a fishy smell in his mouth and coughing up a mouthful of fresh blood. He reached out to rinse his hand with rainwater and touched his eyes, feeling somewhat surprised. Sleeping immortal skill not only allows people in the realm of Do Qi to absorb Do Qi in their sleep, refine their body, and increase their soul. There is another possibility. That is to practice this skill, after condensing it into a doji cyclone. Continue to cultivate, but do not let Duqi have attributes. It is possible to obtain a special physique that you dream of. Yes, the special physique I dreamt of. That is to say, if you really get this kind of constitution, its ability is exactly the same as what you dream. Even if you know you're dreaming and forcefully fantasizing about this physique to an extremely abnormal level, it's still possible. That's also why Lu Sheng has clearly been able to successfully condense the Do cyclone for a long time, but has not practiced any martial arts and continues to improve his realm. However, in recent years, he has not shown any signs of the special physique he dreamt of, and he has had to give up. It's good now, I suddenly have a feeling. Chapter 5. Setting Sail. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mountains and Rivers. It is several tens of zhang wide, running from east to west across Liujia town, and is an important water source in the town. If it weren't for it, Liujia town wouldn't have developed so much. The next morning, by the banks of mountains and rivers. The heavy rain last night brought a large amount of water vapor to the mountains, resulting in thick fog in the morning. The disciples of Tianyang sect, Lu Sheng, Lu Yu, and everyone from Liujia town who came to see them off, had been waiting here early, waiting for the boats that came to pick them up. "Ha, little one." Liu Mu approached to get close to Lu Sheng, but was glared back by him. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Liu Mu felt embarrassed to say anything more and could only regretfully retreat. This attracted a burst of laughter and whispers from the people of Liujia town who came to bid farewell and watch the excitement. Yesterday, my father was respected for his noble daughter, just like Lu Mu, the next manager of the Lu family. Today, he is being ridiculed without restraint. Lu Yu felt a bit bitter when she saw her father being exhausted. Yesterday, Lu Yu, who was still like a proud woman in heaven, was praised by the stars. Today, she can only pale in front of the light of Lu Sheng. She hates herself a bit. Why is she in such a hurry? She can't wait any longer until he finishes the test. Last night, she had already learned from the disciples of Tianyang sect what kind of existence an alchemist was. Without hesitation, as long as Lu Sheng truly becomes an alchemist, even the lowest level alchemist. Even if she spends her entire life and reaches the level of a martial arts master in the future, her status is far inferior to hers. Liu Yu looked at Lu Sheng and felt increasingly annoyed as she thought about it. Lu Sheng seemed to have a sense and glanced at Liu Yu, but he didn't pay attention. Good kid. At this moment, his face turned pale and he looked at Su He, who was feeling a bit empty. He came to Lu Sheng's side and looked at him with a resentful expression in his eyes. Upon closer inspection, it can be observed that several disciples of the Tianyang sect, including Su He, have pale faces and floating footsteps, as if they had experienced several major battles yesterday. Cough. It should be okay. Lu Xing smiled awkwardly. It's okay. You owe me a favor, remember? Su He whispered, gritting his teeth. Okay, whatever you say. Lu Xing laughed and immediately agreed. Su He understood the meaning very clearly and wanted to further bring their relationship closer. This is a desirable thing for Lu Xing now. After all, his strength is still weak, and with Su He can also provide some protection. Hiss, ouch, it's all collapsed. Su He covered his stomach and let out a mournful cry. Puff. Lu Xing glanced around at the Tianyang sect and almost couldn't laugh. Yesterday, when Lu Xing learned that Fong He was likely to take the opportunity last night to kill him, he came up with a solution to avoid this calamity. His method is very simple, that is to poison a few people of Tianyang sect. Because their daily life is managed by Liujia town, which gave him the opportunity. Of course, poison is not a strong poison, but rather laxatives and hallucinogens, all of which are used for wild animals and livestock. The dosage is not lethal, but it will definitely be enough for a few people to fuss around overnight. At least it can make Fong He, without time and energy, take action against him. Wow! Wow! In the mist, the sound of flowing water came, and when Fong He looked towards the sound of water, he saw a huge shadow silhouette driving towards this direction. The outline is very large, like a terrifying monster in the mountains and forests. For a long time, the huge outline broke through the constraints of layers of fog and appeared in front of everyone. It's really big. Lu Xing couldn't help but exclaim as he looked at the giant object that appeared in front of him. That is a huge wooden boat, it is bright red all over, more than 20 zhang long, 7 or 8 zhang wide, and more than 2 zhang high. On the huge white sail, there is a big black yang character. Wow! Shaoxing is so big. Lu Qing was beside her, her mouth open as if she could swallow an egg. Cough, cough, cough. I know, you always say who pees far away in every competition, but there's no need to say it in this situation now. Lu Xing blushed and coughed lightly. What are you thinking? Lu Qing understood the meaning immediately after hearing this, and the two of them frolicked together. The giant ship docked, and Su He waved his hand and led the crowd to board the ship. There are already several Tianyang sect members on board, holding things and waiting specifically. Here are your ID cards and clothes. Take them and I'll take you to your room. Su He took 3 sets of clothes and handed them to Lu Xing and the others. Then, led by Lu Xing and Lu Qing, they arrived at a double room in the cabin, decorated in an antique style. Lu Yu was arranged to go elsewhere. As soon as he entered the room, Lu Xing lay on the bed and rolled back and forth, saying, "What a soft bed, it must be comfortable to sleep on. I will work hard, and create a world in Tianyang sect." Lu Qing was full of energy, clenching her fists and vowing. He not only swore, but also sat cross-legged on the bed and began to practice. Sleep. Lu Xing yawned, undressed and went to bed, then fell asleep. He stayed up almost all night last night and is now very sleepy. As soon as he entered a sleep state, the sleep immortal technique automatically activated, with a hint of white fighting spirit following his breathing. It circulated through his mouth and nose for a week and then disappeared into the dantian, amidst the doji cyclone. But because the fighting spirit in his body had reached the limit of the doji cyclone, there was constantly fighting spirit escaping from his doji cyclone. Absorbed by Lu Qing, who is currently practicing in a room, he enters his body, cleanses bones and marrow, and strengthens his physique. Lu Qing can clearly feel that his cultivation is rapidly improving. At this speed, in 4 or 5 days, he can also enter the 7th stage of Do Qi. Hey! I'm really a genius. Lu Qing thought happily in her heart. Lu Xing had a dream. In his dream, he dreamed of a person who called himself Shuri. He had a pair of eyes full of chaos, and there were also 2 black pupils in his eyes. The two pupils are connected to each other, and there is a white arc flashing between their rotations, which is unpredictable. He stood tall in the void, looking up at the sky and roaring something. Tong was originally an invincible path, why use someone else's bones? After speaking, his eyes burst with dazzling light, piercing the void and piercing through heaven and earth. In that unnamed place, a strange scream came out, as if a powerful creature had been struck by this penetrating gaze and fallen. As Lu Xing wandered through his dreams, he quietly came to the kitchen, followed by a boy who looked 3 times similar to him. He arrived at a prepared dish and took out a small blue bottle, adding white powder to the dish. He also reminded the young man behind him, Feng Shui, you can take this dish to that boy's house later. This is San Shi Duan Chang San. If you don't eat it for an hour, you will definitely suffer from liver and intestines rupture and die suddenly. Stinky kid, let you provoke me, I won't make you to Tianyang sect. He said, his expression twisted a bit. Later, Feng Shui looked a bit scared and said, brother isn't that good? After all, it's on its way into the sect. In case the sect tracks down. After the investigation of the sect, we will have the older generation of our Feng family supporting us. He is a dead person with no background, and we are still afraid of him. He cast a glance at Feng Shui, looking like a stinky little kid with a really ignorant expression. But I'm afraid. Feng Shui was still a bit scared. What are you afraid of? He's not a member of the Tianyang sect yet. That kid has such a strong talent for cultivation and also has the talent for alchemists. Once he enters the sect, he will become a great disaster. Now, it's time for us to share the worries of our family. He said, with a fierce gleam in his eyes. You caused the trouble yourself, let me do the work. Feng Shui was unwilling in his heart, but due to He's lewd power, he had to give in. Humph. In Lu Xing's dream, a man with double pupils opened and closed his eyes wide, striking one astonishing attack after another, shining brightly with blood and energy like scorching sun. The void is shattered, the great road is worn away, and heaven and earth share the same sorrow. Only that person stands in the void and never dies. Ah! Lu Xing was startled and suddenly woke up. He sat up from the bed, sweating profusely. What's wrong with you? Lu Qing, who was practicing on another bed, couldn't help but ask when she saw Lu Xing suddenly wake up. Lu Xing rubbed his eyes and casually replied, it's nothing. He looked stunned and his heart skipped a beat. Because he found that his vision had improved significantly, even the ants in front of his door could be seen clearly. Is the possibility of sleeping immortal skill really touched by me, and my physique is just that pair of eyes? Lu Xing thought of the person's eyes in his dream. He brought a mirror and took a look. Sure enough, at this moment his eyes had become the same as those of the person named Shi in his dream. In the eyes filled with a chaotic atmosphere, 2 black pupils are connected, and in the rotation, there is an endless power of birth and death, incredibly powerful. He looked up and focused, wanting to see what was special about these eyes. Then something shocking happened. The object in front of him suddenly became illusory, and his gaze penetrated through the wall to see the scene of the next room. This is a girl's dormitory, where Lu Yu lives while she is changing clothes. All over my body, except for the red mandarin duck belly pocket and other close-fitting clothes, I took off everything else. The young girl's skin was like jade, with straight and round long legs, a plump waist, and a newly formed snow-white appearance all exposed to him. Hiss. It's really beautiful. Lu Xing drooled as he looked at it. Lu Yu changed clothes and suddenly felt a chill on her back. She turned her head and looked over here. Startled, Lu Xing quickly turned his gaze to one side and then saw He sneaking around in the kitchen, sprinkling a small bottle of powder into a plate of food. What is this guy doing? Lu Xing frowned slightly, but remembered that there was a small gap on the plate. Lu Xing wanted to see for a while longer and figure out what he was going to do, but he felt his body empty and his vision blocked by the wall again. Exhausted fighting spirit. So fast. Lu Xing withdrew his gaze and found that his already incredibly strong fighting spirit had been exhausted. He is the combatant of the Condor Cyclone. And thanks to these years of suppressing the realm and constantly strengthening the cyclone of fighting, his fighting spirit is far stronger than that of ordinary fighters of the same level. Just for a while, your fighting spirit has run out. The consumption of these eyes is terrifying. Lu Xing quickly probed his body, then was surprised again and said, How did my realm turn into an 8-dan fighting chi, almost falling into the 7th dan? Is it because he gave birth to these eyes? Lu Xing touched his own eyes and a conjecture surged in his heart. He speculated that this so-called special physique did not actually appear out of thin air, but rather was condensed from the fighting spirit cultivated by the sleeping immortal technique. Okay. It's better to be honest and practice again. Lu Xing said, sitting cross-legged and practicing the sleep immortal technique. While continuing to explore the mystery of these eyes. Without a doubt, these are a pair of powerful pupils. In the dream, these eyes, with a gleam of light, directly shattered a powerful creature. Although it was a dream, Lu Xing could also feel the power that could be described as destroying heaven and earth. If these eyes were as powerful as they were in a dream, then he would have gone crazy. Not to mention 2 small realms, he is willing to make him become an ordinary person directly. Through a morning of exploration, Lu Xing discovered that these eyes have several basic abilities. Chapter 6. Emperor's Eye. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 1. Superb insight. These eyes can perceive the most subtle changes in things that are difficult for ordinary people to see. 2. Far-sightedness is magnified, and these eyes have extremely terrifying vision. They can see the fur on an ant's leg several meters away. And it has the function of zooming in locally in the field of view. 3. Perspective is what he just used. For, never forget, as the name suggests, is something that will never be forgotten after seeing it once. 5. If you look fast or slow, anything under these eyes will slow down, it's like a divine skill in battle. 6. To see through the origin, these eyes can see through any mysterious surface and analyze the origin of all things. Among them, perspective, the ability to see through the source, and consumption are all very high. Using these 2 abilities, the current Lu Xing can't last long at all. Sure enough, they have good eyes. These 2 small realms are not wasted. I should give you a name. In my dream, you were called Tong. No, in my dream, you were called Tong. In reality, I can't call you that too. Then let's call you Emperor Tong. Lu Xing came up with a majestic name and bounced on the bed, extremely excited. With a movement of his mind, he closed the Emperor's pupils, and the 2 black pupils in his eyes merged into one, becoming ordinary eyes. At the same time, he had more confidence in going to the Feng family in the future and sending his mother's memorial tablet into the temple. Ah! Are you foolish, Lu Xing? Lu Qin beside her looked at Lu Xing bouncing around, full of doubts. You're so foolish, what do you know? Upon hearing this, Lu Xing jumped onto Lu Qin's bed like a starving tiger and knocked him down. Ah, you've been talking to yourself for a long time there. Lu Qin let out a mournful cry. The 2 of them were playing and frolicking together again in bed. Dong! Dong! Just as they were playing around, there was a knock on the door. Go open the door, go open the door. Lu Xing urged Lu Qin. It's always me. Lu Qin felt a bit reluctant, but still went to open the door. The door opened and Fang Shui, dressed in green clothes and dressed as a waiter, was seen holding 2 food boxes. He lowered his head and smiled, it's time to eat, everyone. As he spoke, the waiter dressed up as Fang Shui walked into the room and placed the food box on the wooden table inside. He opened the food box and placed each dish on the table. While taking out food, he explained. This is Westlake fish in vinegar sauce, a rare delicacy. Vinegar is vinegar, and fish is fish. There is absolutely no connection. You came just right, I'm already hungry. Lu Xing's eyes lit up and he stood up with great joy. But when he came to the wooden table, he felt something was wrong because one of the plates had a small gap. He had seen this plate before, and while exploring the perspective function of the Emperor's eye, he saw it. At that time, Fang He was sprinkling mysterious powder inside. Wipe. No way, it's the same move. Lu Xing suddenly remembered yesterday afternoon when he drugged Fang He and others. Fang He won't be inspired, let's deal with me like this. Lu Xing's mind changed rapidly. It looks so delicious, why are you still hesitating? Come and eat. Lu Qing called out and picked up a piece of meat and gave it to her mouth. Che, you are indeed a villager from the mountains and fields. You have never seen anything good before. Fang Shui couldn't help but contemplate Lu Qing's wolf-like expression when he saw a sheep and drool. Lu Qing, stop talking. Lu Xing stopped drinking and shouted to stop Lu Qing. What are you doing? Lu Qing said with a puzzled expression on her face. Lu Xing didn't speak, just glanced at the open door. As a long-time ally of Lu Xing, Lu Qing immediately understood his meaning, ran to the door, closed the door, and then opened it, looking behind. Waiting for further instructions. What's going on? Is it exposed? Fang Shui felt a bad premonition when he saw the door closed. Lu Xing walked behind the waiter and looked up and down at him. His eyebrows furrowed slightly and he thought to himself, Emperor Tong. His eyes were filled with a chaotic atmosphere, and his pupils were divided in two, interconnected. During the rotation of the pupils, there is a white arc flickering, with an uncertain brightness, as if there is infinite mystery inside, evolving within it. Emperor Tong's pupils shone on Fang Shui's body, and in an instant, all his secrets were completely revealed by him. Fang Shui tightened his body and felt as if he had taken off his clothes and been seen naked. He turned around and looked at Lu Xing in terror, saying, What are you doing? Lu Xing closed his eyes and closed the emperor's pupils. This thing consumes too much fighting spirit. With just one sweep, it depletes almost 1/10 of his fighting spirit. A 15-year-old, 8-dan Do Chi person has become a shop assistant. What is your relationship with Fang He? Lu Xing sat on the bed, regaining his fighting spirit while asking. Why are they endless? Lu Qing's face was full of anger upon hearing this. He found out, I didn't expose it, did I? Probing, definitely probing. Fang Shui's thoughts churned in his heart, his eyes twirled twice, and he turned to smile and said, Young Xia, I don't understand what that means. Don't understand. Lu Xing narrowed his eyes and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Just this smile, falling into Fang Shui's eyes, was like a demon's smile, making him shiver all over. Lu Xing suddenly stood up, like a hungry tiger pouncing on Fang Shui. Upon seeing this, Lu Qing rushed forward and wanted to help. Seeing the two of them fighting, Fang Shui sneered and said, Humph. Two people from the mountains, one with a 7-dan fighting spirit and the other with a 6-dan fighting spirit, dare to fight with me. A strong fighting spirit surged out of Fang Shui's body, and he did not fight against Lu Xing, but rushed towards the weaker Lu Qing. He wants to defeat it first, and then turn around to deal with Lu Xing. Lu Qing also ignited a fighting spirit, and the two of them met each other while punching each other. Bang! With a muffled sound, Lu Qing flew out backwards, causing the door to creak. Lu Qing was already 2 small realms lower than Fang Shui, and he had never practiced any fighting skills since he was young. The latter not only has a higher realm than him, but also is a descendant of a big family. He received a good education from a young age and knows how to fight. Of course, he is not a match. Lu Qing. Lu Sheng was furious when he saw Lu Qing being beaten, and at the same time, he secretly resented his carelessness. If he had just exerted all his strength, he could have caught Feng Shui, but unfortunately he had just fallen into the realm. Falling from a fighter to an 8-dan fighting aura, I overestimated my own strength, so when I made a move, I didn't exert all my strength. You also have a share. Feng Shui sneered and turned his head to punch Lu Sheng. Fighting skills. Lu Sheng saw at a glance that the person in front of him had used the fighting skills, and he no longer kept his hands. The fighting energy in his body was stimulated to the extreme, and it moved into his palm. 6 Harmony Palm. Lu Sheng used the martial arts of the lower level of the Xuanjia left by his mother, the 6 Harmony Palm. Bang! The clash of fists and palms made a muffled sound, and Lu Sheng only felt a violent force coming from the person in front of him, striking towards him. He neutralized the first palm power of the 6 Harmony Palm, but when he exerted all his strength, the 6 Harmony Palm could have 6 palm powers. Bang! 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 5 muffled sounds echoed from Feng Shui's body, and he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Then his body, like Lu Qing just now, flew backwards like a broken kite. Crashed into the door of the house, the wooden door creaking. There was a noise, and even the door frame showed obvious cracks. Visible strength. At this moment, Feng Shui had only one question in his heart. Isn't he the Qi of 7 Dan Do? Why is he so powerful that he defeated me with just one move? There is no room for counterattack. Seeing the water flying towards her, Lu Qing, who had already dodged to the side, stared straight at this scene and turned to look at Lu Sheng, asking, Lu Sheng, why are you so powerful? He has also seen people with the Qi of 7 Dan Do, who are more powerful than him. But didn't this person just say, is it the Qi of 8 Dan Do? How could Lu Sheng slap someone and still knock them away? I'll tell you later. Lu Sheng angrily walked to the door, grabbed Feng Shui, and dragged him to the table. What are you doing? I'm Feng Shui from the Feng family, you can't touch me. Feng Shui looked at Lu Sheng with a frightened face and said weakly. He was hit with Lu Qing's full-force Lu Ha Palm, broke one arm, and also suffered a serious internal injury. What are you doing? Of course we invited you to dinner. Lu Sheng said, turned his head to look at Lu Qing, waved his hand at him, and said, come here and open his mouth. Isn't Lu Sheng good? After all, he belongs to the Feng family and has already been beaten like this. Let's forget it. Lu Qing walked over and glanced at Feng He, who had been knocked unconscious, feeling a bit scared. If you're afraid, you can go out. Lu Sheng looked at Lu Qing and said expressionlessly. It's normal for Lu Qing to be afraid, after all, the Feng family is a huge creature with a strong fighting spirit and a seat. For people in mountain villages like Liujia town, it is not an exaggeration to say they are like gods. Moreover, Lu Qing and the Feng family have no grudges and do not want to participate, which is normal. But Lu Sheng couldn't back down at this moment, because the current situation is no longer as simple as a dispute. Feng He has already targeted him with an assassin. If it weren't for the coincidence of awakening Emperor Tong and using his perspective ability, he would have seen him poisoned. He couldn't imagine what he would do. There is a high chance that he will eat the food and be thrown off the ship by Feng He into the mountains and rivers. So, who will wash away the humiliation of him and his mother, who will put the plaque in the ancestral hall, how can he go to see his mother under the 9 springs? In short, Lu Sheng has no way out. He must confront the Feng family, this behemoth, even if he is alone, knowing that he will face a near death. Lu gave birth to you. Lu Qing was so anxious that he was almost crying. In the end, he gritted his teeth and did something, which made him regret his lifelong decision. He ran to Feng Shui and opened his mouth. Seeing this scene, Lu Sheng's lips showed a pleased smile. The pure friendship between being together and who can stand the test. Then he picked up his chopsticks, picked up a bite of food, and delivered it to Feng Shui's mouth. As he returned the item, he let out a demonic laugh and said, "Come and taste the thing that Feng he added seasoning to. Is it delicious?" Feng Shui widened his eyes and struggled to break free from Lu Qing's constraints, threatening, "Lu Sheng, dare you kill me? There are several of our family members on this ship, aren't you afraid they will seek revenge on you? You give me a mouth." Lu Qing opened Feng Shui's mouth again. "Ha!" Lu Sheng laughed heartily at the words and said, "You said that. Aren't you already taking action now? It seems that the poison inside is really deadly. You come and taste it first." Lu Sheng said and handed the vegetables to Feng Shui's mouth. At the entrance of the meal, Feng Shui was frightened and spat out desperately. He knew that there was San Shi Duan Chang San inside, and eating a little would break his liver and intestines. The pain was not something that ordinary people could bear. It's better to give it a good time. But when he vomited, Lu Qing couldn't let him achieve his wish. He immediately covered his mouth and pressed down to give him something. With his eyes wide open, Lu Sheng's desire for survival ignited his immense strength and he struggled once again to break free from Lu Qing's constraints. He said to Lu Sheng, wait, give me a way out, I'll exchange something for my life." "Ah! What's there?" Upon hearing this, Lu Sheng felt a sense of joy in his heart, as there was also an unexpected gain. "You." Feng Shui thought for a moment and gritted his teeth before saying, "I have a martial arts skill in my pocket that is not passed down from our family. Do you think you can exchange my life?" Bang! Lu Sheng placed the plate on the table and began to pull the water. He really found a scroll from his chest. Lu Sheng opened it and glanced at the content inside, murmuring, Yulongbu, the superior body method of the Xian level. After training, the body shape is free and easy, like a wandering dragon, with good body techniques. Lu Sheng exclaimed sincerely after reading it all over. Then, he opened the Emperor's eye and recorded all the contents inside. At the same time, Emperor Tong's ability to see through the source and analyze all the mysteries inside one by one, all the tricks, were understood and comprehended by him. "You see, I have already given you my fighting skills. It's time to let me go," Feng Shui said. Lu Sheng looked at Feng Shui and scratched his head, grinning and saying, "Ah, let you go. I didn't say let you go." Feng Shui was a little excited and said, "Let me go, this fighting skill is yours. Can't it exchange my life?" Confused, Lu Sheng rolled the scroll of Yulongbu onto the table and said with a look of foolishness, "Kill you, this fighting skill is also mine." "Ah!" Feng Shui was completely confused. This was different from what he thought. Shouldn't he have used his fighting skills to exchange his life? How come the fighting skills have gone out and I still want to die? Lu Sheng gave Lu Qing a glance, and the latter immediately understood and continued to pry open Feng Shui's mouth. "You eat." Lu Sheng picked up the food and continued to deliver it to Feng Shui's mouth. Chapter 7. 6 Harmony Palm, 4,000 Great Chapters for Collection. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It's been so long, why hasn't Feng Shui come back yet? Feng He waited in the room for a while, feeling a little uneasy when he saw that Feng Shui had not returned yet. This Feng Shui is not an ordinary person. He is an elite disciple trained by the Feng family, and in terms of status, he is on par with Feng He. If there are any major issues with Feng Shui, he will be unable to bear it and walk around. "No, I need to go take a look." After thinking for a moment, Feng He still felt uneasy and turned his head towards the room where Lu Sheng lived. When he saw the visible crack on the door of Liu Sheng's house, his heart trembled, knowing that something must have happened inside. He had a bad premonition that Feng Shui had not returned yet. Thinking of this, Feng He no longer hesitated, but activated his fighting spirit and slapped the door with a palm. He is a 4-star fighter, and with a palm strike, he already has the power to pierce through gold and break through stones. In addition, the door of this house has cracks, so it is unobstructed, and the wooden door instantly bursts open. Then he saw the scene inside the room, where Lu Sheng, Lu Qing, and Fang Shui, who were lying on the ground and had already died, were sitting and practicing. Fang He. Seeing Fang He break through the door, a hint of coldness flashed in Lu Sheng's eyes. Fang Shui was the one he watched die from. Before his death, he was in great pain, constantly struggling to make Lu Sheng give him pleasure, and even in the end, his face twisted. And this poison was originally given to him. If he eats it, he will fall to the ground, struggle in pain, plead for someone to be happy with, and it will be him. Still there. Lu Sheng quietly extended his emperor's pupils and probed he, with a smile on his lips. What's going on? What's going on? I don't know, it seems like something's going on here. Someone's dead. Fang He. Is this Lu Sheng's room? What happened again? At this moment, the people next door who heard the commotion on this side also came out and surrounded the corridor, with Lu Yu among them. Fang He looked at Fang Shui, who had fallen to the ground and had already passed away, and instantly felt a chill all over his body. At this moment, he thought a lot about how to explain to his family and how to explain to his parents. With countless thoughts in his heart, he looked at Lu Sheng with a resentful expression for a long time and shouted loudly, Lu Sheng, did you kill Fang Shui? Lu Qin was startled by Fang He's anger, swallowed his saliva, and looked at Lu Sheng with a hopeful expression. Upon hearing this, Lu Sheng chuckled lightly and said, Fang He, please don't label yourself indiscriminately. Brother Fang Shui and I are like old friends at first sight. Come to me to compete in martial arts. These are my beloved relatives and friends, brothers and sisters. How could I possibly hurt a killer? Lu Qin rolled her eyes as she listened. Just now, when Fang Shui was howling in pain, it was you who covered your mouth and worked hard. Bastard, Fang Shui died in your room, and you still want to deny it. A person like you with a malicious heart, if you enter the sect, you can still repay it. Today I'm going to clean up the door for the sect, you little bastard. Fang He's face turned red with anger, and he let out a loud shout. The strong fighting spirit of the 4-star fighter burst out, frightening the onlookers and retreating together. Then he let out a furious shout, with a raging anger, like a mad lion, and with a single punch, he hit Lu Sheng with all his might. He wants to take this opportunity and directly kill Lu Sheng. Anyway, Fang Shui has died in Lu Sheng's room now. Even if he kills the other party, there is still a reason, and the sect will not do anything to him. So powerful, is this the strength of the fighter? It's too terrifying. If it were me, I wouldn't be able to resist this punch and would be beaten to pieces. That person is unlucky. Judging from their angry state, those who take action are afraid of either death or injury. Yes, although the difference between the Qi of Do and the Do is only one realm, their strength is vastly different. Everyone shook their heads and sighed, as if seeing Lu Sheng lying on the ground, on the brink of death. The difference between Do Qi and Do Ren is really significant, at least they don't have the confidence to take on the next Do Ren's angry blow. I told Fang He that I didn't kill Fang Shui, you're seeking revenge for public gain. Lu Sheng didn't show weakness, let alone plead for mercy, and he also activated his internal fighting spirit. The breath belonging to the 8th section Do Qi emanates and envelopes everyone. What? The 8th section Do Qi. How old he is. He has such strength, he is definitely a dazzling genius. Everyone felt the strength of Lu Sheng and their hearts jumped fiercely, as if they had been hit by a sledgehammer. At the age of 13, the 7 Dan Do Qi is already a genius, and the 8 Dan Do Qi is a genius among geniuses, which is extremely rare in the entire Gamma Empire. This kid must die. Otherwise, entering the Tianyang sect is definitely a hidden danger. Fang He furrowed his brow and made a secret decision in his heart, adding another point of strength to his fist. 13 years old, with an 8-dan fighting aura and a talent for alchemists, this kind of genius is too terrifying for the Fong family to possess. Just as Fong He's fist was in front of him, the wind of the fist blew his long hair into the air. He suddenly stood up, like a wandering dragon soaring into the air, his body fluttering like smoke and clouds. He managed to dodge Fong He's attack with an incredible posture. Boom! Fong He punched the bed with his fist, unleashing a violent force that shattered the entire wooden bed, causing sawdust to fly in the air. Startled, Lu Xing trembled all over and secretly felt grateful. Fortunately, he had just obtained the Xuanjie Superior's body method combat technique, the Dragon Step. And used the Emperor's Eye on the spot to record, analyze, understand, comprehend, and integrate it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to avoid it at all. The angry blow from the 4-star fighter would have really cost him a punch. At the same time, Lu Xing's ability to dodge Fong He's attack also impressed everyone. Without him, it was just him who had just made such a handsome evasive move. Yulongbu is known for its graceful and highly ornamental body movements. Little thief! Fong He shouted angrily, turned around and rushed towards Lu Xing again, his fist whistling and hitting his face directly. Of course, Lu Xing dared not fight him, so he could only use the dragon walk, which was both dangerous and dangerous, to dodge the attack, and then constantly move around the room. Every time Fong He wielded an endless fist, he was able to block him and almost hit him. And he always manages to brush past Fong He's fists at an incredible angle with oil on his feet at the last moment, narrowly avoiding them. This made everyone outside unable to help but sweat for him, afraid that he might accidentally be killed. The two of them were in the room, coming and going, chasing after each other, and soon the room was ruined. How impressive! Who is it that the person named Lu Xing fell to the ground? He can even move around under the attack of a fighter. A handsome young man in black with a slender figure couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. The rest of the people only saw Lu Xing, who could narrowly dodge under Fong He's attack every time, but he saw a hint of mystery in it. Standing beside him, Lu Yu glanced at the person and said, "People from Liujia town, a small mountain town." Impossible. The young man shook his head upon hearing this and said, "His steps may seem chaotic, but in fact, he has a very organized technique. This is clearly a footwork with at least a mysterious level. So young, with the aura of 8-dan combat and the ability to master the mysterious steps, even a family like the Fong family rarely has such a genius. His future is limitless." A strange radiance flashed in the boy's eyes. You should know that human resources are sometimes scarce, and cultivating fighting spirit and skills takes time. You can focus on one end, but not the other. Not to mention the Xuanjie fighting technique. That is an extremely profound existence, and each one is extremely difficult to master, requiring a lot of time, energy, and hard work to practice. This is still exceptionally talented. Without someone's guidance, I wouldn't have been able to practice. How much he has hidden. What I don't know. Lu Yu frowned slightly upon hearing this. From yesterday's 7-section fighting chi to today's Xuanjie fighting skills, she suddenly realized that she knew too little about Lu Xing. She wanted to go back to everything that had happened in the past 2 days, her eyes full of bitterness. Speaking of it all, it seemed like it was all because of her. If she hadn't been like that at that time, now she should be sitting in the room with Lu Xing and Lu Qing, imagining a better future. In the room, the battle is still ongoing. Fong He chased after Lu Xing and gradually became restless, mainly because he hadn't caught him after chasing for so long, which made him feel embarrassed. At this moment, he caught a glimpse of Lu Qing hiding beside him and gave a fierce smile. Turning to let go of Lu Xing, he headed straight towards Lu Qing and punched out with a faint roar of a tiger. Everyone's heart tightened when they saw this scene. If this punch hit Lu Qing, it would definitely kill him. Lu Qing is not Lu Xing. He doesn't know how to fight. When he saw Fong He killing him, he was immediately scared and silly. He would only cry and shout, "Ah! Lu Sheng, help me!" When Lu Sheng saw Fang He killing Lu Qing, he was startled and secretly said, "Despicable." He shouted loudly, "Fang He has the ability to come at me. You, a 4-star fighter, bully him with the aura of a 6-dan fighter. What kind of ability is that? 6 Harmony Palm." As he spoke, Lu Sheng unleashed his fighting spirit to the extreme, shining brightly on his body. He slapped Fang He with a palm, intending to save Lu Qing. "It's you waiting." Fang He, who was originally attacking Lu Qing, smiled ferociously when he saw Lu Sheng killing him. He suddenly turned around and punched him. No, Fang He didn't even want to kill Lu Qing. He was trying to lure me over. Lu Sheng saw Fang He turn around and his mind changed rapidly. But at this moment, he had already rushed over, and it was too late for him to use the dragon walking step to dodge. He could only do his best and use the 6 Harmony Palm. Fierce Tiger Shaking Mountain Fist. Fang He exerted all his strength this time, with a hidden tiger head forming on his fist and roaring in waves. He directly demonstrated his boxing skills. Huanjia Intermediate Fist, Fierce Tiger Shaking Mountain Fist. At this moment, he was like a fierce tiger in the mountains, unleashing an angry blow. So strong. This boxing technique, Fang He probably has already reached an extremely profound level of cultivation, and cannot be underestimated. It is definitely not an 8-dan fighting aura that can be countered. Everyone felt Fang He's murderous heart in the attacking power of his punch, secretly sweating for Lu Sheng. They know that if they take this punch themselves, there will definitely be no life or death. Lu Sheng felt that what was in front of him now was not a person, but a fierce tiger descending from the mountain, intending to devour him. He has no doubt that this punch will definitely kill him. At this critical moment of life and death, Lu Sheng's desire for survival ignited his potential, and the 6 palm forces of the 6 harmonies palm merged into one. 6 white palm imprints appeared on his body, and these 6 palm imprints flew out, all of which disappeared into his palm. He made a breakthrough on the battlefield and cultivated the 6 harmony palm to the pinnacle, with power comparable to the intermediate level combat skills of the Xian level. Ah! 6 in 1, 6 in 1. Lu Sheng shouted, with unparalleled courage and an unstoppable momentum, welcoming Fang He's fist. Bang! A loud and resounding collision sounded. The white fighting spirit waves scattered in all directions, as if a gust of strong wind had blown. Lu Sheng only felt his palm power, like an egg hitting a stone, easily shattered by a powerful force. Then the force, which had already been largely neutralized, rushed into his body and almost disabled his entire arm. The power transmitted into his body, and his body shook. His bones, flesh, and organs were all hit by this force. Like a sledgehammer, constantly forging him. He had a sweet taste in his mouth, spat out a mouthful of blood, and flew out upside down. The heavy impact hit the wooden wall of the room, and everyone could feel the vibration from the ground. It can be imagined how heavy the impact was. Lu Sheng fell to the ground, spat out a mouthful of blood, and he wanted to get up. But I found that my whole body was constantly twitching, and I couldn't use any strength at all. A handsome little face, now pale and sweating profusely. Surprisingly still alive. Seeing this scene, everyone outside the door felt a chill on their backs. Not to mention the killing power of Fang He's fighting skills, just the moment Lu Sheng collided with the wooden wall, they could feel the vibration from such a distance. That way, if it were them, they wouldn't dare to say they could still survive. Good kid, even under my full-strength tiger shaking mountain fist, you can still survive. I really let you enter the sect, you haven't become an expert yet. Fang He walked step by step towards Lu Sheng, wanting to take down the assassin and eradicate the disaster. Stop it, if you want to kill Lu Sheng, pass my level first. Startled, Lu Qing, who didn't know where the courage came from, stood in front of Lu Sheng and congratulated him fiercely with a fierce expression on his face. Humph. You're going to die too. Fong He gave a fierce smile. You. Lu Qing was a bit scared and turned to look at Lu Yu, hoping that she would step forward and stop Fong He. Because of the two of them, there have been rumors these past few days that if she comes forward, it should make Fong He open up. Cough. Lu Xing coughed up a mouthful of fresh blood and turned his head to look at Lu Yu. It's not that I hope she can come forward to save them, I just hope she can show her composure based on past relationships. Years of friendship, can it just be so broken? Lu Yu saw Lu Sheng and Lu Qing's gaze, and after thinking for a moment, she finally withdrew from their sight. She knows that standing up now can make up for her previous mistakes. But she didn't want to have a negative impact on Fong He because of Lu Sheng. After all, that's the Fong family. She didn't believe that Fong He, who came from a big family, could not compare to the wild child Lu Sheng in the mountains. Yes. Lu Sheng has astonishing talent, but so what? He's almost dead now. What can a dead person do if they have talent? They are still dead. Haha. Lu Sheng chuckled softly, feeling no more affection for Lu Yu in his heart. Lu Qing also had a look of disappointment and despair. In the end, Lu Yu still didn't stand out and missed the only opportunity to restore her relationship with Lu Sheng. Lu Sheng struggled to sit up, leaned his back against the wall, and looked at Fong He, who was carrying a killing intent and pressing him step by step, and smiled. Fong He, you are so eager. Are you trying to kill someone and silence them? Fong He was taken aback for a moment, then smiled and said, kill someone and silence me. Haha. I am seeking revenge. If you kill Fong Shui and our family, you must have the consciousness to pay for your life and die. Get out of the way. What's going on? Just then, Su He's voice came from outside. Listen to the sound, he is breaking through the crowd and squeezing inside. Upon hearing this, Lu Sheng raised his lips and said, Fong He, you made a bet with me yesterday. Today, I made a bet with you that you can't kill me. Chapter 8. Selection of Su River. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. De Co Lois Ara Trong Quatrin Lay Text. Chapter 9. Within a short distance, people destroy enemy countries. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Practice it, and it breaks through. This was like a thunderbolt on the ground, making everyone who heard it couldn't help but pout and secretly say that Lu Sheng was really pretending to be coerced. The stage of Do Qi is the fundamental stage of the practitioner's cultivation, and the hardships involved are well known to everyone present, making it so easy. Besides, how old is Lu Sheng? 13 years old. At the age of 13, even if one starts practicing the 8th section fighting Qi at the age of 5, it still exists in a small realm every year. At this speed, at the age of 15, he will directly condense the Do cyclone and become a true fighter. If they were to know that Lu Sheng had already successfully condensed the Do cyclone and entered the Do realm at the age of 10, they would not know how they would feel. Suha glanced at Lu Sheng, feeling secretly shocked and making some kind of decision. After thinking for a moment, he asked Lu Sheng, Fong Shui, but did you kill him? He needs to understand that if the cause of Fong Shui's death was really Lu Sheng's, then if he wants to protect it, he cannot. After all, harming one's fellow clans is very serious, and it is a forbidden existence for all clans, let alone now, so many people are watching. Upon hearing this, Lu Sheng felt a slight joy in his heart. Su He first asked him this, which clearly gave him an opportunity to defend himself. Although it was just an opportunity to defend himself, it was already enough for Lu Sheng. He didn't initially think that Su He could really protect him. It's enough to suppress Fong He who is preparing to use force. Lu Sheng's face didn't turn red and his heart didn't jump. He shook his head and said, no, I didn't kill Fong Shui. Nonsense, admitting that he killed Fong Shui at this time is like old Shoshing hanging himself and seeking death. You're talking nonsense. Fong He glanced at Fong Shui, who was covered in sawdust, and angrily said, you didn't kill Fong Shui. How could Feng Shui die in your room? Everyone looked at Lu Xing upon hearing this. Yeah. You didn't kill anyone, why did that person die in your room? Lu Xing nodded to himself and the other party, he raised a question. He was very satisfied, and then said calmly, Brother Feng Shui and I are like old friends at first sight. Isn't it normal for him to come to me for a duel? How can you explain why he's like this now? Feng He pointed to Feng Shui, who was lying on the ground and had already died, and shouted angrily. Suha looked at Lu Xing with no expression on his face. Although he wanted to protect Lu Xing and befriend him, in this situation, he could only stop Feng He and forcefully kill Lu Xing. But it cannot be silenced and questioned. After all, Feng Shui is really dead now, and a reasonable explanation must be given in order to convince the public. Otherwise, if you kill him today and he kills him tomorrow, it won't be chaotic anymore. A whole ship of people may not arrive at Tianyang sect, so it's almost enough to kill them first. Meanwhile, Su He also wants to see how Lu Xing responds to this crisis. Cultivation is not about fighting and killing, cultivation is about human relationships and worldly wisdom. Lu Xing shook his head and said with a smile, I don't have anything to explain. I just had a martial arts competition with Feng Shui, and he got a little injured. We finished ordering, and later Feng Shui said he was a bit hungry, so he ate some food. Who knew that after eating this meal, my whole body would twitch in no time? And then I would die. Lu Xing said, his eyes fixed on Feng He. Feng He listened to his words and felt a thump in his heart, secretly saying something was wrong. Sure enough, Lu Xing pointed to the scattered food and continued, so I think Feng Shui's death must be related to these dishes. Someone poisoned these dishes. It was only then that Feng Shui was poisoned and blamed on me. Brothers, I am wrongly accused. We must find out the person who poisoned us, otherwise it was Feng Shui who died today, and we won't know who it is tomorrow. Lu Xing became more and more excited as he spoke, and even in the end, there was a hint of crying in his voice. Lu Qing was on the side, almost laughing out loud, and could only secretly press on. The pain she had suffered covered up her desire to laugh. Everyone outside looked at each other with fear upon hearing these words. Surprisingly, someone has poisoned their food, which is truly despicable, and their heart can be punished. After all, everyone has to eat food, and if this matter is taken seriously, one may not be able to continue eating in one bite, and once one closes their eyes, they will never be able to open it again. Speaking of this, Feng He also reacted and thought to himself, it's broken. Suha didn't understand the situation, nor did he know what Lu Xing wanted to do. He just took out a silver needle and inserted it into Feng Shui's abdomen. When pulled out, the silver needle turns black, indicating toxicity. Upon seeing this, Lu Xing disregarded his own injuries and shouted excitedly, Look, look, I'll say that Feng Shui is either dead or poisoned. He urged Su He to check the food on the ground and said, Quick, take a look at these dishes and see if they are poisonous. Upon hearing this, Su He also checked the dishes and found that they were equally poisonous. Now everyone was really surprised. They thought they came here to watch the excitement and eat a big melon. Thinking about this melon, how to eat it, and how to eat it is related to oneself. Feng He's eyes twitched, his eyes lit up, and he quickly spoke out, You said the food was poisonous, Feng Shui was poisoned to death, but we ate all today's food. How come we're okay? Upon hearing this, everyone looked puzzled again. Yeah. They all ate today's meal, but they didn't feel any discomfort. Feng He's original intention was to pin the charge of poisoning on Lu Xing's head, making everyone believe that he had poisoned and killed Feng Shui. But he didn't want Lu Xing to squint his eyes and chuckle, saying directly, It's obvious that someone specifically poisoned this meal. Then he stared fixedly at Feng He and said, Who do you think this person will be? Feng He, do you think it's you? Feng He was startled in his heart, and his unease grew stronger and stronger. He shouted, You are a villain who first reported it. You must have poisoned Feng Shui. Yes, you must have poisoned Feng Shui. Feng, he said, flipping his right hand inside his clothes when everyone was not paying attention. Then he walked towards Lu Xing's bed and said, the poison must be there. However, just as Feng he was speaking, he took 2 steps. Lu Xing endured severe pain, broke free from Lu Qing's support, stood in front of him, pointed at Feng He, and shouted, Feng He, what's inside your right hand? You. Feng He was frightened and his eyes widened, looking at Lu Xing with an incredulous expression. Everyone was stunned by Lu Xing and Feng He's verbal attacks, and they looked at each other with a bewildered expression. Only a few people, with a sudden realization and an excited expression, watched the good play. At this moment, Su He also recovered from confusion and looked at Lu Xing with admiration in his eyes. Lu Xing pressed forward step by step and glared angrily at Feng He. Feng He, what exactly is what you are holding in your hand? Take it out and show it to everyone. Feng He's face was sweating profusely, and then a fierce smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Kid, haven't you ever heard that within a short distance, people are all enemies? Ah. Now it's Lu Xing's turn to break out in cold sweat. Feng He suddenly faced a challenge, and his strong fighting spirit surged, attacking Lu Xing again. Chapter 10. Lu Yu's Regret. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Feng He is also a genius. He has always known that the key point lies in Lu Xing. As long as he dies, anything can be easily solved. As the saying goes, the act of beheading is done by someone, while the loss-making business is not done by anyone. No one will go to great lengths not to please, but to become enemies with the Feng family for the sake of a dead person. Lu Xing looked at Feng He, who suddenly erupted and killed him, and felt an infinite emotion in his heart. I really underestimated him. At this time, I dare to give it a try. The heroes of the world are truly like the Qing who crossed the river. Lu Xing thought the big picture had been decided, and at this point, Feng He was already a fish on the chopping board. He could only wait for him to reveal the bottle containing powder and convict him. Unexpectedly, he dared to take action. He was too close to Feng He, and before everyone, including him, could react, his fist hit his chest. As if a sledgehammer had hit his chest, Lu Xing flew backwards again. Feng He approached to repair the knife, but was scolded by Su He, stop. Then Su He stepped out with one step, and the aura of the 8-star Do dominated the entire audience. He approached Feng He and reached out with one hand, as if catching a chick. Take it off easily, then grab his arm and take out the thing in his hand. That is a small blue jade bottle, and through the light, you can still see inside, leaving half a bottle of white powder. Lu Xing was knocked upside down and flew out, about 3 or 4 meters away. He spat out a mouthful of fresh blood again and wobbled to get up, his breath slightly wilted. Fortunately, Feng He caused a violent attack and injured people. In order to seek speed, he didn't have time to use his fighting skills. Therefore, this last punch was far less powerful than the first 2 punches, which allowed Lu to survive. However, despite this, Lu Xing has been repeatedly injured and his condition is already very serious. But this last time, it was indeed his carelessness. He didn't expect Feng He to be so fierce, and in that situation, he had to give it a try. He actually appreciated Feng He from the bottom of his heart. Everyone couldn't help but ponder to themselves when they saw Lu Xing stand up again, swaying and swaying. This guy's fate is so tough, he's really like an indestructible Shao Chang. Then, all eyes focused again on the small bottle in Su He's hand. Lu Xing spat out a mouthful of fresh blood, and the smell of blood filled his mouth and nose. He couldn't help feeling uncomfortable and said, look, this is likely the poison in the food. This is a good opportunity to convict Feng He. He laid out these things, wasted so much effort, and lost half of his life, just for this moment. Punish Feng He and eliminate this hidden danger. Feng He still didn't give up, half clarifying and half threatening, shouting, Suha, that's just an ordinary bottle, not any poison at all. Don't slander me, I'm from the Fong family. Suha ignored Fong He's threat and opened the small bottle. Upon smelling it, he opened his mouth and said, "It's San Shi Duan Chong San. When a person eats it, their liver and intestines will break and they will die, which is extremely painful." Speaking, he stood up and came to Fong Shui's side, touched his stomach, pointed to the bottle, and said, "Fong Shui's liver and intestines are broken. The poison in it is indeed San Shi Duan Chong San." Upon receiving confirmation from Su He, Lu Sheng was overjoyed and shouted, "Fong He, what else do you have to argue? That water brother is your fellow race. How could you be so vicious and poison him? What are you trying to do?" His righteous words were full of great righteousness and deep affection. Everyone couldn't stop nodding and looking at Fong He with fiery eyes. They didn't know that there was a grudge between Lu Sheng and Fong He. They really thought he had a personal grudge against Fong Shui, poisoning and killing people. After all, from the perspective of everyone, it is indeed possible that Fong Shui is of the same clan as Fong He, and there may be enmity, thus having a motive for murder. But Lu Sheng and Fong Shui didn't know each other before. There can be no motive for murder. This time, Lu Sheng hit an information gap in front of everyone. In fact, when it comes to Fong Shui, it's true that he was poisoned to death by Fong He's poison, and it's not really true. It can only be said that it's not particularly true. This kid. Fong He. You've offended a terrible person. Su He sighed inwardly as he saw everyone's emotions stirred up. Turning around, he looked at Fong He and asked, "Fong He, what's wrong with this poison?" Fong He looked at the bottle in Su He's hand and then at Lu Sheng, who had a proud expression on his face. He swallowed his saliva and sighed softly, "I have been wrongly accused. I want to go to the law enforcement hall." He understood clearly that he lost this time. Now that San Shi Duan Chong San was found in his hands, it was equivalent to the yellow mud in his pants, not just feces but also feces. No matter how much debate there is, it will be pale, and we can only temporarily admit it. When we return to Tianyang's sect, we will consider it in the long run. Anyway, with Fong's family around, he would at most be like a conscript and punished. At this moment, Lu Sheng sneered and said, "Is it unjust? It's really ridiculous. Fong He, the 3-breath heartbreaking powder was found in your hand. You shouted to catch the thief and entered our room to kill our brothers and silence them. It's also what everyone is watching. Shouting injustice now, are you treating us like fools?" Fong He didn't say anything, he knew he couldn't say anything about Lu Sheng now, and no one else would believe what he said. Why not speak up? Anyway, no one dares to kill him now. When the sect arrives, it will be his home ground. Suha saw that the situation had reached this point, and it was time for him to step forward and make a decisive decision. He coughed lightly and stepped forward, saying, "Someone. Fong He is suspected of murdering his own clan and children. Starting now, he will be imprisoned at the bottom level. When he returns to his sect, he will be handed over to the law enforcement hall for punishment." After he finished speaking, 2 disciples of the Tianyang sect came forward and suppressed Fong He. "Lu Sheng and Lu Qing," Su He said, pausing for a moment. He had intended to give them some reward, but upon reflection, Fong Shui's death must have been related to Lu Sheng. He couldn't get rid of it, so he changed his tone and said, "Change the room. Everyone else has dispersed." Su He shouted. Everyone outside, 2, 3, returned to their own rooms, but the discussion about today's matter became increasingly lively. The focus of the discussion is not on Fong He poisoning, but on Lu Sheng. At the age of 13, one is naturally a genius with a fighting spirit of 8 stages. And with the blessing of footwork and fighting skills, one can navigate against 4-star fighters without falling behind, which is even more of a genius among geniuses. Even everyone believed that if it weren't for Fang He playing tricks and attacking Lu Qing, they were afraid that Lu Sheng could continue to waste time with him. In the end, Lu Sheng was seriously injured and was able to exert all his strength to launch a counterattack, injuring Fang He, the 4-star fighter. It was simply a demon. There is also the Xiaoqiang attribute that was beaten so badly, but it is immortal. In short, everyone knows that among their group of disciples, real dragons have emerged. Lu Sheng will definitely become a trendsetter among their disciples in this period. Hey Lu Yu, I see you and that Lu Sheng are together, and both of you have the same surname Lu, right? A girl from Lu Yu's room spoke up and asked. After thinking for a moment, Lu Yu just perfunctorily said, I guess so. She felt a bit down. Lu Sheng didn't die, but Fang He was locked up, which greatly exceeded her expectations. More importantly, listening to the compliments, and even idolizing Lu Sheng around, learning his tone and speaking voice. She gradually realized that the gap between herself and Lu Sheng was much larger than she had previously thought. She realized that she seemed to have missed an opportunity to soar, which was not the most uncomfortable for her. The most uncomfortable thing is that she just gave up the opportunity to improve her relationship with Lu Sheng and reconcile. She regretted it.